Welcome to is beautiful Tennessee. We're happy to have you for another episode of the Primetime Show. We got a shocking admission about Mike Vrabel's coaching staff and why it could be a benefit to have Denard Wilson running the show this year. We've got a discussion about regressing to the mean position groups. There weren't a ton of position groups that even have room to regress from last year's Titans roster, but I think I found just the position group where it is most likely that this team would take a step back, and in a lot of places where they stand to take a step forward. We got a weekend bounce back to wrap things up, and it's always a good time when we can wrap our week up in exciting fashion. We've got a fun video to end the week and the show with tonight, but first we got to do the show, and before we can do the show, you got to share this show on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, wherever you're hanging out with us. If you're on Twitter, please retweet the show in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share. You can share now to public. And if you're on YouTube or Twitch, like I see Philip, I see Scary Harry, you can like the video. You can subscribe to the channel while you're there. And you can enjoy all the fine content that A to Z Sports produces on a regular basis, which is no prime time on Fridays, but we will have a 615 Sessions podcast for you tomorrow. We'll go ahead and get things rolling. More of you guys will trickle in as we get it running. And we'll talk about this shocking admission that Arden Key made yesterday. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studio. Hello, if you're new, I'm Buck Rising. I'm your host, and I'm proud as always to be presented to you by the fine folks at Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, and get up to $100 on your no danger first wager in the Zen Sports app. Of course, TrueMav Fitness, where the first workout is free at TrueMavFitness.com, and where you can maximize your goals with the best coaching staff out there. TrueMav Fitness in the Gulch, and Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer, quality American-made Ford vehicles, and award-winning customer service at TwoRiversFord.com. We had a bunch of different conversations with a bunch of different Titans players yesterday, being out on the practice field for OTAs. Now, we have three practices this week. Tuesday, Wednesday. They were off today, and they'll be back on the practice field tomorrow. Only one of those practices was open for the media, and so we jammed a bunch of different things into yesterday's work, including speaking with Arden Key, among several other Titans players. And in speaking with Arden, he's always transparent. He's always enjoyable. He's a fun guy to talk to, because he's always going to be pretty honest with you, no matter the circumstance. And I very much appreciate Arden's candor, even when it leads to a shocking revelation about a coaching staff that's no longer here and some problems that it would have been nice to know about last year that could have been leading to the significant letdowns that a solid Titans defense did provide. Scary says he is a great interview. Here's the thing about Arden, because I really enjoy Arden. Truly I do. As a person and an interview, more than I do as a player. And I would like, if I'm a Titans fan, for Arden to be as good a player as he is an interview. And I think that he has some strides to make in that department, but that doesn't mean that he can't be a contributing player, and it doesn't mean that he can't earn a starting role this year. The first time that he has outright had a starting role, really, with him as the primary edge rusher opposite Harold Landry. They need Arden Key to be a better player than he has, basically, for the majority of his career. But we're not here to talk about Arden Key's deployment tonight. We're here to talk about Arden Key and what he had to say about Denard Wilson and the conversation that it kind of led to how things were operating a year ago. And you're going to hear that conversation here in a second. The question that I'm going to ask you guys on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch in the comment section, if you are so inclined to participate, is this: what's your gut feeling about the Titans defense right now? It can be optimism, it can be pessimism, it can be position questions, it can be whatever you want it to be. What is your general gut feeling about the state of the Titans defense? we'll discuss at length right after I remind you that your Two Rivers Ford Take is presented by the South's most trusted Ford dealer. That's Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. They always put you in the driver's seat as the customer to make the car buying process fast, easy, and fun. They are heavily involved in the local community, and they have served millions of Tennesseans over 40 years in the business. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com for more information. So what's your gut feeling about the Titans defense? Major Key says, I think the defense is back and better. Well, that's curious because they're definitely a better cornerback group. There's no disputing that they're a better cornerback group. Although if L'Jarius Sneed is real, I wouldn't believe it if I didn't sit down and interview him myself, because he does not practice. And we knew this coming in with the situation as they manage his knees, even though he says he's completely healthy. There's clearly and obviously a plan for L'Jarius Sneed. And what the plan involves right now is at least not being available on the practice field for the open OTAs. Did it bother him last year? No, he was an incredible player. Is it going to bother him this year? I don't know, but I haven't seen him practice. Yeah, the cornerback group is better, but I don't think that you can argue that the defense is better. They still haven't had a viable replacement emerge for Kevin Byard. Their edge group is perilously thin. God forbid that anything happened to any of the three of them, with Arden, with Weaver, and with Harold Landry. We'll see how much more Denard Wilson uses guys like Jalen Harrell or Caleb Murphy or some of the other UDFAs who may be vying for a roster spot. And there is no question that that the off-ball linebacker group is less than is the word that I would use. It's probably as diplomatic as I could put it. So I don't know that I would say that the defense is, the defense isn't really back, because you cleared out a lot of the defensive players, to be honest with you. So it's neither back nor quantifiably better yet, other than the cornerback group, which is, I would say, an upgrade. Mike Wash says, I'm not sold on Sweat as a pass rusher. Well, you don't have to be sold yet. He hadn't played a down of football. And their task is to get him in shape. By the way, he's also not been available during at least the open OTAs. He is in the building, though. I know that both of them are in the building, but neither have been available for at least the open OTA sessions that media has been a part of. And Sweat, there is plenty of potential for him to be a viable interior pass rusher in the mold of DJ Reader or BJ Raji, or guys who may not look like your traditional pass rusher per se, but who are still incredibly effective at pushing the pocket, at collapsing the pocket. And I think Sweat, if they can get his weight under control, which is, something that they continue to work through, sure, he can be plenty viable. But yeah, you don't have to be sold on him yet. He hasn't played it down yet. Rashid says, I keep my eyes on Caleb Murphy to revive his preseason stance. Yeah, I guess Caleb Murphy was okay in the preseason. I probably need to go refresh myself on what he did exactly, but I don't know that. Preseason is when a guy like Caleb Murphy should be making plays. If he's not making plays in the preseason, then he shouldn't be on the team. So, I don't care what Caleb Murphy does. I don't want to say completely discount what Caleb Murphy does in the preseason, because obviously he has to earn a roster spot one way or the other. But I'm not that hard up on the preseason for guys like Caleb Murphy, because that is when they are supposed to perform. Somebody has to perform in a preseason game. And, if Caleb Murphy does it, that's better than not. But his one regular season action, I believe he botched a play on special teams that drew a significant penalty and cost the team considerable field position. So I'm honestly more concerned about Caleb Murphy if he has to play special teams than if he can find his way into the rush rotation. David Lee says, I talked about Murphy months ago. He will break out this season. Okay, well, I'm glad that you guys have an awful lot of optimism in a bunch of players that you don't know shit about. Not to say that you don't know shit about them, but I don't know shit about them either. And I don't mean that to say is well, you're completely uneducated or you're ill-informed or this, that, and the other. But I don't know anything about these guys and how they're going to look. And, that many of you seem to have incredible optimism in he's Ferris State, in a Ferris State UDFA who, was a super productive player in college. But hadn't done anything in the pros. So I'm very curious. Always curious to see. It's kind of like Mason Kinsey. Mason Kinsey had a bit of a cult following. And listen, to Mason Kinsey's credit, D3 wide receiver, Barry College, continuing to survive in the practice squad. Made a couple of nice plays in yesterday's practice, as a matter of fact. But I look at him more like Mason Kinsey, like practice squad all-star. And honestly, I would say that Mason Kinsey is more viable at what he does than Caleb Murphy has been at what he does. But we'll see if anything more can come from a new coaching staff, which is what leads us to the Arden Key discussion right now. Because when we talk to Arden specifically about, trying to take on more of a third down role and what he's seeing for Denard Wilson, it was pretty interesting to hear his take on things specific to Denard Wilson, but also how it compares to last year's coaching staff.
The coaching style, what they teaching, try to do everything up to my best ability and see where I go.
I'm sorry if someone asked you about the new additions to the defense, but what do you think? What is the ceiling for you?
It's great. Just Denard, his track record the last 2 years, number one in pass rush, sacks, number one in takeaways, and every other category top 5. So he coming in, like I told him before, I've been around, and it's some defenses I've been a part of that was number one in pass rush, number one in sack, number one in takeover, and the D coordinator that was there, he's showing some of the same characteristics of that D coordinator that we had a great defense that year. And he coming over here, the intensity he got, the detail, and we don't move on until everything is fixed. And the detail he got and the swag that he got that he come in with every day, oh man, it's gonna be exciting.
Did you move on before some details were fixed in the past?
Hell yeah. Yes, we moved on. If we messed up, we didn't fix it. And now this year, when we mess up, we don't move on until we fix it. So yeah.
You having that kind of experience, bouncing around a little bit and seeing all the different styles and different personalities and stuff like that, how reassuring is it to know that you have Denard, you're seeing some of those traits that you like as a coach?
Very reassuring. I'm tip my hat out to him the last 2 years. I mean, he's been consistent in his work the last 2 years. Just the defense he's been part of, they did crazy, tremendous work. I remember Philly when they almost broke the sack record. Everybody was just talking, and then when we hired him, you kind of look back and remember, oh man, he was part of that. Oh man, he's in Philly. Oh man, he's with the Jets. Oh, these guys that get to the quarterback, know how to get to the quarterback, and just their style of getting to the quarterback is what fix us best.
So that's Arden Key. We're going to work our way through a lot of what he just said here in just a second. I'll remind you that the Primetime program is presented by TrueMath Fitness in the Gulch. Go to TrueMathFitness.com for your first workout free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout ever recycled or repeated. Go to TrueMathFitness.com. I'll be at TrueMath Fitness tomorrow morning, as a matter of fact. So if you want to get a workout in with me, go at 7 a.m. And your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident at TrueMath Fitness. Love TrueMath. Love Arm Farm Friday. That's what's on deck for tomorrow with Worth and the crew. So that will be a great time. A lot of things to parse there from Arden, right? And well, because Courtney Jackson says, no lies detected. Well, I don't think that Arden's lying, but I do think that I need to clean up some of what he said, because if you go back and listen, and in fact, we can throw this up and we can do it in real time, as a matter of fact, and I'll put myself on the screen at the same time as we do this.
The coaching style, what they teaching, try to do everything up to my best ability and see where I go.
I'm sorry if someone asked you about the new additions to the defense, but what do you think? What is the ceiling for you?
It's great. Just Denard, his track record the last 2 years, number one in pass rush, sacks, number one in takeaways, and every other category top 5. So he coming in, like I told him before, I've been around, and it's some defenses I've been a part of that was number one in pass rush, number one in sack, number one in takeover, and the D coordinator that was there, he's showing some of the same characteristics of that D coordinator that we had a great defense that year.
Okay, so Arden says of Denard Wilson, who came from the Baltimore Ravens, number one in sacks, number one in takeaways. He's absolutely correct. They were also number one in points per game last year, the Baltimore Ravens. They were an excellent defense, and all of those things are factually accurate. The inaccurate part of what Arden says here, and I had to go vet this morning. It took me a long time to go and look up these stats from the 2018 through 2020 Raiders, the 2021 Niners, and the 2022 Jacksonville Jaguars, all of which Arden Key was a part of. He has never been, and, I didn't realize this in real time. Otherwise, I would have, asked him for a clarification. Arden's never been on a defense that led the league in sacks. He's never been on a defense that led the league in takeaways. The Niners year was as close as he got, where they were a good defense, but and he had a career year prior to coming to Tennessee. He had 6.5 sacks, but San Francisco was 23rd in takeaways that year and 6th in sacks. The Raiders never finished better than 24th in team takeaways while he was there. They were 24th, 31st, and 30th. When he was on the Raiders in 2 years in Oakland and 1 year in Vegas. They were 32nd, 25th, and 29th. So quite the opposite is the only thing that I would point out about Arden, what Arden is saying there. Not that Arden's intentionally misleading people or lying or anything like that. I just think he misspoke. So wanted to clarify that first and foremost before we moved on with the rest of the video. Now, Arden is talking specifically about qualities that he's had in Denard Wilson and that he's seen in Denard Wilson. And I'm pretty sure the coach that he's talking about is DeMeco Ryans. He didn't specifically say DeMeco Ryans, but that's the comparison that makes the most sense based on Arden's previous experience and how he's kind of working on that. Rashid Jenkins says he means in practice, Buck. No, he means in games. That's the Baltimore Ravens do not lead the league in practice sacks, practice takeaways, and practice points per game. What the fuck? I mean, what? Excuse me. What does that? Sorry, I'm getting a little too comfortable with the F word, Rashid. No, there is no way, shape, or form that he's talking about practice there. I think that's a bit nonsensical. So you need to pay attention to what he's saying. Rodney Carter says, I wasn't listening, or somebody else wasn't listening. I'm not sure exactly who wasn't listening, but still, Arden's a little off base there, which is the only reason why I think he's a bit of an imperfect messenger on this. But still, what he's saying about the coaching staff still holds true. What Arden is saying is that when we made critical errors, we did not move on, or we did move on. We did not stay on the same play or on the same package or on the same mistake until we correct the errors. I think that what you have in the Titans and in Denard Wilson, you see a lot of the qualities that translate well as a head coach. I know Denard Wilson very much wants to be a head coach. I think that you probably have him for one season before he's talked about head coach for head coach possibilities. But what Arden is saying there about the previous staff is that they were not interested in taking time to correct the mistakes, that they were willing to move on, and that Denard Wilson is not willing to let them move on until he knows that they've got it 100% down to executing the way that he wants it to execute. The way that he wants it executed. Rashid says for him in practice, leading in sacks and takeovers. Yeah, well, I don't want to say that they don't count practice stats. Rashid, I'll just tell you that you're wrong, and I don't think that you need to argue this point. This is not a hill that I think you want to die on, because I believe you're incorrect or mistaken about this, but that's okay. Boss Man Jim says, what about the Jag stats? Yeah, they definitely didn't lead the league in sacks or takeaways. I'll pull up the numbers because I looked them up. Give me 1 second. Jacksonville. Actually, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I can tell you definitively that the Pittsburgh Steelers led the league in sacks the year that Arden Key was on the Jacksonville Jaguars, the year that he helped beat the Titans en route to winning the AFC South title and going to the playoffs and then beating the Los Angeles Chargers. So you'll have to look up the takeaways for yourself, because I don't have the ability to do it right now. Maybe Bert can do it for me, or maybe Bert already has done it for me. But no, he has not. But that's okay. I don't think the Jags led in takeaways either in 2022. You may fact check me on that. I don't think that I'll be proven incorrect, but I don't have the specific numbers in front of me. Now, there's a lot to like about Denard Wilson's scheme because he helped make great pass rushers because he was the defensive backs coach. He wasn't the coordinator, but he helped work with the scheme and a secondary that helped make great pass rushers out of 32-year-old Kyle Van Noy, Justin Matabike, who's never had more than 5 sacks in a season prior to this year, and Jadeveon Clowney, who had one of the best seasons of his career. Now, I think that's as much about Chuck Smith, who is the pass rush specialist that has been training guys for years and years and years. Some of you may remember Chuck Smith. I think he had a season or two with the Titans. I think he spent the bulk of his career in Carolina and Atlanta, and ultimately he owns Chuck Smith training systems, which trains many, many pass rushers, including Derek Morgan, Von Miller. Chuck has always been a big part of the Von Miller Pass Rush Summit, which has been going on for a couple of years. Amar knows him. He uses the name Dr. Rush. Exactly. Dr. Rush was, and I don't know why he wasn't on a coaching staff prior to last season, but Dr. Rush got hired by the Ravens last year, and it made one of the best defenses in the league infinitely better. Now, the secondary takes a lot of pressure off that rush and helps if you can have that coverage on the back end for the rush to be able to work off of, because if you can't get the ball out in 2.5 seconds or less, then you're probably banged in that situation. And the Ravens are a great example of that. But I do think that there are some things to like about the possibility of what Denard Wilson is bringing. I just don't know that they have horses that are as good as what Baltimore had last year, even as I acknowledge that 32-year-old Kyle Van Noy and Jadeveon Clowney are not, I mean, you're probably not looking at them as being infinitely better than what the Titans are offering this year. That's Jeff and Harold and Sweat and Weaver and Arden and those kind of guys, but it's neither group is really impressive on paper besides obviously Jeff. So I think that there's make Bert do it. He's not doing anything else but sitting there with no shirt. No, Bert actually has a shirt on today. He just doesn't have a pant. He doesn't have pants or underwear on. So there was almost a flashing situation in the pre-production program. Thank God Bert remembered to tilt his camera up when he gets up without pants on. Anyway, so let's keep it moving on the primetime show because it is a pretty shocking admission. And the gut feel that it gives me about the Titans defense is, well, okay, maybe there is some room for improvement. Titans defense wasn't bad last year. They're the number 1 red zone defense. Now, how often are teams getting to the red zone because the Titans give up terrible explosive plays in late or critical game situations? Weren't a bad takeaway group, about middle of the pack. Weren't a bad yards per game allowed group, about middle of the pack. They were pretty solid defense last year, given all the problems that they had. The biggest problem is the offense couldn't score. So every time the defense can't basically hold opponents to 20 points per game, you're looking at the defense, you're looking at Christian Fulton. And listen, Christian Fulton and Murphy Bunting, they didn't have the best seasons. Murphy Bunting got paid okay, and Christian Fulton got a decent deal from the Chargers. But I don't know that Denard Wilson is going to be able to single-handedly bring everything that the Baltimore Ravens had at their disposal, because I think Mike Macdonald is a different kind of cat entirely. There's a reason he's a head coach in Seattle. I think that to lose the brain power, not just the manpower, but the brain power of Mike Macdonald and Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith in all of that, because I think Roquan Smith, and Bert could speak to this better than I could as a Ravens fan, but I think Roquan Smith made Patrick Queen infinitely more viable for the Baltimore Ravens last year. There's a lot of things about why Baltimore looked and performed the way that they did last year that I don't think Denard Wilson could just pick up and move to what Tennessee is about to do. So I'm curious about it. I would assume that this is going to be a below average group, but there's some reason for optimism, and that primary reason is in the secondary. So my gut feel is meh. I don't really, I'm not super excited about them. I'm not super down on them, but I think they're, I'm fence sitting a little bit on them, but I really don't know what to do with them yet, because I don't know that they're going to be very good, but I don't know that they're going to be very bad either, and they weren't very bad last year. So we'll see how much further they can improve upon, if at all, what the Titans were able to do on defense last year, because it was a bad season, but the defense wasn't bad. And, I do think that Mike Vrabel and Shane Bowen do deserve some credit for that, because it could have been a lot worse for as poorly as that offense performed. Let's see. Cordy Jackson says, let the freak flag fly. For Bert, Kendall D says we were always good in the red zone with Vrabel. I saw a picture of him running around or videos of him running around at Browns practice today, having the time of his life. So seems like he's doing okay. John Doe says, I'm guilty like Trump. Well, yes, the 45th president of the United States today did get hit with a guilty charge on 32 felonies regarding hush money and cover-up money for a porn star. I cannot say that I've ever been convicted of hush money for a porn star, but if that did happen, I don't know, that would be a pretty interesting primetime show. I assume I have no idea. I don't know if that disqualifies Trump from running for office or not, but it's not even like the real shit that people are accusing him of. It's just the porn star thing that he's been found guilty of so far. We'll see how much further that goes. God knows that that is going to continue to be a part of our lives until November comes and goes, mercifully, because none of the options are appealing at all to me. Anyway, let's get to a position group on the Titans roster where we think they could take a step back. Since we're talking about, questions about the Titans defense and where these things are at this point in time, what position group, wide receiver, tight end, edge rush, corner, what position group do you think is most likely to regress in 2024? We can talk about it together right after I remind you that the Primetime program is presented by Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, get up to $100 on your no danger first wager in the Zen Sports app, where you can bet on all your favorite major sports, the MLS, the NBA, the NHL, all going on. NBA Finals, very, very close to being a part of our lives. Zen Sports is the place for you to get in on all the action. So plug in that promo code ATOZTN. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line, 1-800-889-9789 in the Zen Sports app. Kendall D says, oh, no politics? No, that's not even, I guess it was a little politics, but yeah, it's a huge deal that the first president in the history of the country ever been convicted of a crime happened today, whatever the crime is at this point. Let's see. Kendall D says linebackers regressing. He says linebackers is really the only answer. Yeah, because the roster was pretty shitty last year, so it's tough for a lot of these position groups to take a step back. Tyke says maybe right tackle just because of the uncertainty. You know what? I mean, I know NPF hadn't been out there and Jalen Duncan hadn't been out there, but like I don't think that means you're going to take a step back. Like Chris Hubbard was the best right tackle that you fielded last year, and he was only available for like 5 or 6 games before his season was maybe a little more than 5 or 6 games. Maybe I'm not giving Chris Hubbard enough credit, but his season did end due to injury, and he was the best option that they had. Now, Chris Hubbard is a 32-year-old or 30-plus-year-old journeyman at this point in his career who did give them quality snaps to his credit, but is definitely on the downside. So that you can't find at least a Chris Hubbard-like figure in the all kinds of different players that you've added to this team besides NPF and Duncan. Uncertainty is good, because what I'm certain of is that the options that you had at right tackle were bad. And so I think uncertainty in the case of the Titans offensive line can only be a positive, because it can get worse than it was last year, but they were literally the worst group in football of any of the offensive lines out there by several metrics, not every metric, but by most metrics, especially in pass protection. But Nicholas Petit-Frere, that right tackle, is uncertain, I think is totally fine. I think it's completely fine. Like I said, says punter. I don't know that Stonehouse is going to be ready for the start of the year. He's not out there and available right now. And you still have Ty Zentner, so I don't think that's uncertainty or regression, because Zentner did play a good amount of the snaps. And he was okay. He's fine. But, I think however Stonehouse looks whenever he gets back is going to be a big storyline to watch, because there's no question that he's one of the most effective punters in football. And if there's anything about his injury that's diminished his abilities, well, then that would be, 1, deeply unfortunate, and 2, something to monitor, given how young he is in his career. Cordy Jackson says safety most definitely is the place where they might regress the most. It's an interesting theory, because they were without Kevin Byard for a chunk of it, right? KB wasn't great. He wasn't bad here in Tennessee. It was worse with the Eagles, and honestly, the secondary with the Eagles was pretty hideous as well. They looked old and slow, and not just because of Kevin Byard. I think he'll fare better in Chicago. Elijah Molden left a lot to be desired, I thought, but he can play safety. There's as big a question mark at safety as any position group, but I do think that off-ball linebacker is the position group that is, almost guaranteed to take a step back when you have a player who sets the single-season franchise regular season record for most tackles in a season in Azeez Al-Shaair, and he doesn't want to be here anymore, and he wants to go play for D'Amico Ryans, who I had heard he wanted to play for D'Amico Ryans in the first place, that Tennessee was not his top option, that he would have preferred to have been in Houston out the gate. But you know what? To Azeez's credit, he was such a good soldier here, knowing that he was not in the best circumstance or circumstance that he particularly desired. I cannot say enough good things about Azeez Al-Shaair because he was always accountable when it could have been very, very easy for him to check out. Always willing to talk with us about the things that were going wrong when it was a lot of things that continue to go wrong year in and year out. And, I'm happy for him that he finally gets a more viable landing spot that he wanted versus an opportunity that he had to take to be able to better his position. So I think that worked. I know they wanted Azeez back here, but I know that Azeez did not want to come back here. Anyway, so can you put into words what is different culturally and philosophically from last year? Says Ann. Well, yeah, you had a super hard-ass coach, and now you have, a bit of a more mild-mannered coach. The real answer is no, I can't, and because nothing's gone wrong for this current coaching staff. They just got here. It's all good vibes. They haven't lost a game. They haven't lost a player, an important player for the season due to injury. They haven't dealt with all the significant injuries that the Titans administration has in year past. They haven't had issues with the salary cap, right? Because their cap was cleared and they had all the money. And for once, a Titans organization spent consistently across various positions at the top of the market. Ann Herndon says, brains versus brawn. Is that the vibe? No, absolutely not. No, Mike. No. I'll articulate it as best I can. One can be controlled in Brian Callahan because it's his first head coaching opportunity. It's kind of like a later stage McVay. Like when Sean McVay got hired as the head coach of the Rams, there was a couple of different outliers going on in that situation. Jeff Fisher had a lot of power in the Rams organization. He was definitely not the best person for the job at the end of his tenure there. McVay comes in. They immediately are contenders with the offensive system that he's able to put Jared Goff in and maximize the talent of the quarterback. But also Sean McVay as a young coach is easier to be controlled by an organization. And Les Snead, who is just pure scout all the time, can find a way to work with this guy. Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan make a lot of sense. They're both pretty chill, right there. And at least, I haven't been in meetings with Callahan. I haven't seen him erupt on the field or, learn how to creatively cuss as Vrabel. But brains versus brawn. Mike is one of the smartest human beings that I know, not just in football, but just generally. And I think you can tell by not even just the quick-wittedness, stuff like that, but that won you guys a ton of games. His knowledge, the fact that he knew the rule book as well, if not better, than a lot of the officials was huge for you. The fact that he was on the competition committee and all those kind of things. So no, brain versus brawn is not how I'd look at it, but I would understand why you might go there. One is controllable, the other one was not. And that's basically the difference right now. Mike Vrabel had most of the power until he didn't in the organization. And at the end of the day, Brian Callahan has some degree of control, but a whole hell of a lot less at this point. So maybe Brian Callahan develops an ego, goes on to win many, many games. Vrabel was winning games at a rate that was second only to Jack Pardee in the history of the franchise. So Mike was a really good coach. I still think he could be a good coach. I just think, it's hard to replace offensive coordinators year in and year out. And if you want to keep better control over your situation and you're a control freak coach, then that's what you're going to do. And it bit him in the ass. And it didn't work out here. And he'll probably be back in the cycle as early as next season. We'll see. Like Ann, And says here, throwback to Vrabel outsmarting Belichick before the 5-minute mark in Tom Brady's final game as a Patriot. It's a great example of that. Titan Kong says, honestly, I'm not sure why we wanted to keep Aziz. He was leading tackles for us, but he also misses a lot of tackles. I kind of wish we kept Danico Autry. Yeah, but, you know, if Autry wanted to, well, they weren't going to pay top of market for Autry. And Houston can luxury spend. Now, I bet Autry does great in D'Amico Ryan's system. I bet Aziz is great in D'Amico Ryan's system. I've seen Aziz be great in D'Amico Ryan's system. He did it for a good portion of his career in San Francisco when Fred Warner and, I'm blanking on the other linebacker's name. It's going to drive me crazy. Who missed a bunch of time in San Francisco. Dre Greenlaw. I'm having to read Bert's lips. Thank God for Robert, honestly, and I would never tell him that to his face or on camera. But in this, situation, I don't think you could throw more. I mean, you could always, everybody has a price, right? You could always throw more money, I guess, at Aziz Al-Shaair. But he didn't want to be here, and that's okay. And now you're going to try and reboot the off-ball linebacker position, but yeah, it's probably the one that's going to take the biggest step back. And we've talked to Frank Bush, the inside linebackers coach, a lot about all this stuff, and I think that he has given us some pretty good clarity on how they're ramping these guys up collectively: Kenneth Murray, Cedric Gray, and the existing players on the current roster.
Exactly, and that's what it is. Obviously coming out, this kid was highly touted. He did a good job down with the Chargers. I almost said San Diego, but he did a good job with the Chargers and whatnot. And now we see a guy that's a big-time athlete. He's an extremely smart kid. We just want to turn him loose and let him go. He kind of likes being in between the lines, and, hopefully we can get him out on the edges a little bit and let him play free and do what he does best.
And Frank, I'm sorry if you talked about Cedric right out of the gate, but what do you like what you see in him on tape, and what will your message be to him right out of the gate? I like the athlete, like the athleticism. I like that he's a smart kid. Looks like he's in the right place at the right time, doing all the right things. And he seems to be a kid that can fix his mistakes. We saw some stuff early in the season where, he had a hiccup here or there, but later in the season those things didn't show up. And he seemed to be getting better and better and better. And, hopefully, that arrow's still trending as we get him. And James Williams, one more from me. This transition as he makes his way to linebacker, how will you handle that with him?
Well, baby steps. Obviously he's got the size, he's got the speed. He's a tough kid. He's got the mentality, and that was the most important thing for me, was to get the kid that was willing to make that transition. And now we just got to give him some tools. The thing he lacks most is tools, not from an athletic standpoint, but from a linebacker standpoint. So we got to bring him along slowly. We've done it before. We had a kid by the name of Mark Barron that, we kind of moved in the box, and that worked out for us. And, there's a formula. Denard was with me with Mark, and so we kind of have an idea of what we want to do. We just got to get the kid in, give him some wins, get his confidence up, and let him go forward.
What are some of those?
So that's inside linebacker coach Frank Bush, talking about the state of the linebackers, and that was a couple of weeks ago when we last spoke to the assistant coaches. All right, quick weekend bounce back, because I know some of you guys want to watch the NBA playoffs that's going on to decide who's going to play in the NBA Finals. Who needs to bounce back most in sports this weekend? Let's talk about it. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch in the comment section, while I remind you that the Primetime program is made possible by the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage. Don't sell without the intel, and the intel is only provided at GaryAshton.com. The official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators is the best real estate agent in Middle Tennessee. That's the Ashton team. GaryAshton.com for more information. Who needs to bounce back most in sports? There are a couple of good bounce back candidates. I think that you could go in a variety of different directions here. But Bert provided me with this video. He said initially that it was John Daly's daughter. We know now that it's not. Bert, again, I would appreciate the clarification for who this young woman is. If you could give me that in the private chat, but you'll see exactly why Bert might have mistaken Charlie Hull is the woman's name for John Daly's daughter, because there's one very significant similarity.
Absolutely. Absolutely legendary. That's awesome. John Daly-esque.
John Daly, yes, she's signing autographs. She's ripping heaters. She's killing it on the golf course. She's making birdies, not bogeys. She is John Daly in female form, except without all the situations that John Daly's lifelong habits have caused and ravaged his body with at this point in time. Though he continues to do it and continues to be out there, continues to be a figure for the degenerate golfers and everywhere, and Charlie Hull is definitely one of them. Let's see. Is that a cigarette, says Corey D. Jackson? Yes, absolutely. KC player, says Angelica James. Need a bounce back man. The Isaiah Buggs story is really, really sad. And sad because just anything that happens to animals, it makes me angry. It bothers me. The details on it are disgusting. And, I know he's alleging that the city of Tuscaloosa is kind of like out to get him. And his business apparently that he owns in Tuscaloosa. I saw him put out a statement saying that the allegations were erroneous and fictitious and this, that, and the other. But yeah, man, the Chiefs players cannot stay out of the news. And I just, the animal abuse one is something, the alleged animal abuse one is something that is particularly hideous. WNBA press needs to bounce back. Why? What happened with the WNBA press? I haven't seen anything. I know Caitlin Clark's trying to have another big night. She scored 30 and lost the other day. I know she's still trying to figure out, but turns out the team that drafts number 1 overall is still pretty bad at this point. And I saw she got a tech for the first time today in WNBA play. I think their Fever are playing the Storm at this point. Have not gotten to see much of Caitlin Clark's career. I'm still trying to figure out how to find the WNBA in my, other than the highlights. I think I'll watch the actual game. But bounce back candidates, always good. Yes, definitely Kansas City is just everywhere in the headlines for all the wrong reasons this offseason. And, maybe it doesn't matter because they got Patrick Mahomes and they'll probably win another Super Bowl 3 in a row. All right, that's going to do it for us tonight. Bert shaking his head vigorously because he thinks the Ravens are going to do it. We'll see. We will see. We will see if Lamar Jackson can ever get past an AFC Championship game. It has yet to be realized, but doesn't mean it can't happen. Got plenty of time to talk about it between now and then. Have a great rest of your evening. Thanks for hanging out with us. Radio show tomorrow going to be fun. We'll have Coach Mack. We'll have Vols getting ready to begin their regional SDB. Titan says Buck's a jackass. It's absolutely true. But you know what? They keep paying me more and more money to be a jackass, which only makes me want to be a jackass even more. So for me, jackass, good for business. Unfortunately for you, maybe not good for your self-esteem, but that's going to be okay. You'll watch the tape, you'll improve, you'll get better, and I'll still be here being a jackass. Sunday night when we get back with you on the Primetime Show, radio show from 10 to 1 tomorrow morning because they keep giving me shows and a 615 Sessions podcast tomorrow. Trying to figure out who's going to be the guest co-host, whoever wants to tolerate the jackass, I guess, for the better part of 30 minutes as we talk about OTAs. But still, they keep giving me shows. It can't be all that bad. Talk to you guys tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on the radio show. See ya.
Go home! Go home! Go home! You're embarrassing Nashville! Go home!